Hey, good morning, basketball fans, and welcome to the Upstate Hoops Podcast at a special time, Sunday, January 11th, 10 a.m. Instead of our usual 9 p.m. start time this week on FingerLakes1.tv and YouTube. I'm Jim Sinicropi here in studio with my co-host Matt Verkey. Also standing by, we have Mike Alessio and Kevin Korzeniewski. We're going to have a nice roundtable show today. We'll recap the action in all Finger Lakes and Wayne County leagues. We'll catch up with Ted Baker. We'll give you our players of the week. And stay tuned as we release the latest edition of our FL1 Sports Upstate Hoops Wayne Finger Lakes Power Rankings and Girls Super 6 at the end of the show. The Upstate Hoops Podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank with locations in Auburn, Farmington, Geneva Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Check out their mobile banking app and visit them online at mygenbank.com. And by Dr. Rod Littlejohn, over 30 years of smiles with style. And Red's Place, the best lunches around are in downtown Seneca Falls. Check out their menu online at menshalloffame.com. Verk, welcome back to the show.
What's going on, Jim?
Had to get up a little early this morning.
Yeah, rough morning this morning for me, but I made it.
Yeah, I like Sunday nights a little better, but it's nice to mix it up a little bit. Before we get to our roundtable with Korzy and Mike, let's bring in Ted Baker for this week's edition of Radio Roundball Roundup. Ted, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us at the special time this week. We both were at the Mynderse Mid-Lakes game this week, Ted, and it was a game going into it that we thought that Mynderse would probably win a little easier than they did. Given the team's records, and I think it's been an ongoing theme with Mynderse this year is that their record's good at 7-2 right now, but when you watch them play, they're maybe not as impressive as you'd like them to be. What's your takeaway from that game on Tuesday night in Seneca Falls?
Well, I thought Mid-Lakes played real well. Kenny DeVay has a good all-around game. Early in the game, he was really banging it inside. He's 6'3", 230. Then later on, he stepped back and hit a couple of threes that kept them in it. The thing about Mynderse is that they're so good at hitting the three that they're just always a couple of seconds away from lighting up. I mean, Brett Anderson hit a couple in the second half when it was a close game. So I think Mynderse will be fine. One of the things I've started looking at when I put together notes for my games is teams' record against potential playoff opponents. Because you look at the standings, you know, with these teams like Mynderse, that's a C team playing in a league with a lot of Bs, and so a lot of times you look at a team's record and say, oh, they've had a few losses, but then they're against teams that they won't face in the playoffs. So I think they'll be fine. They're very well coached and good balance, and I think they'll make a deep run in that Class C bracket.
Yeah, that's the thing about Mynderse. If you look at the sectional C, what is it, C2?
C1.
They're C1, and they're the top seed right
at the
now,
top.
C1.
They're right at the top. And of course, they beat Wayne this week, too, and that's an A2 school, so that's even more points for Mynderse. And it's true across the board. The Wayne Finger Lakes teams are stacking up pretty nicely in the sectional point standings. On the girls' side, Ted, it was South Seneca and HAC. I think South Seneca's lost a couple girls to injury for Coach Heather Mott, but tell us about that game.
Well, that's another one of those examples. South Seneca coming into that game was on a 3-game losing streak, but those 3 losses were to teams with a combined record of, I think it was 21-4, and 3 teams they won't face in the playoffs. So you look at just their record and say, oh, you know, how strong is this team? Well, they showed. I thought it was going to be a good matchup with HAC, but South Seneca, with Coach Heather Mott, can play very, very good defense, and they threw a couple of different full-court presses and some half-court traps at the Wolves, and they were up 18-0 with a minute to go in the first, and they won by 18. So HAC kind of got their game straightened out, but by the time they did, it was too late. And also, HAC is a team, they only dress 8 players. One of them got into foul trouble. They had another one who got hurt during the game. So they were very shallow in the roster, and by the time they got everything kind of figured out, they had dug themselves too big a hole. And South Seneca won 52-34. So that's another example of a team that their overall record right now is right around or a little below 500. Mm-hmm. But they're much better than they look when you stack them up against the teams that they might play in the playoffs. Also, I got a story for you. After that game, A kid comes up to me after the game as I'm taking down the equipment. He says, "You're Ted Baker, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I watch the Upstate Hoops Podcast every Sunday night, and I see you."
Oh, great. We love when we get those types of comments when we're out and about, people watching, and it certainly makes doing it a lot more fun. And we especially like it when the kids and coaches are watching, because that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
So also, speaking of South Seneca girls, just a little bit to the north, Romulus. Zoe McDonald had her 1,000th point this week, so congratulations to Zoe. I know you've seen Romulus play this year and against South Seneca, I believe, right?
Yeah, they're strong, and also I saw that she's committed to go to the College of St. Rose in Albany next year. They're undefeated again. I mean, they're the team to beat, probably Section 5 and beyond. Same thing, they're very well coached, and they've got very good balance. I think especially on the girls' side, when you see a team get knocked out in the playoffs, it usually comes down to a team that only has one or two scorers versus a team where everybody can score. I mean, in that Romulus system, all 5 players on the floor can score.
Yeah, and riding she's 38-game winning streak, I think, by this point. And I don't have the exact number, Ted, but I think it's got to be pushing close to 40 consecutive wins for those Romulus Lady Warriors. So
it's a terrific program, and I mean that's when you talk about a program, that's what you want, is where you can graduate people and still stay at that high level, and they're able to do that. They bring up new kids from the JV. I think they're one of those programs where they all play the same system from the time they're in youth basketball. So, when they're in 4th, 5th grade, they're playing the same offensive scheme, same defensive scheme that they'll be playing in 6 or 7 years in the varsity.
Right. Yeah, that's how you put together a good program. So this week, Ted, where are you going to be? Where are we going to be able to listen to you call a game from this week?
This will be an interesting game. We have just one this week, and then next week we really kick into high gear. I think we have about 4 or 5 games a week from here on out into playoff time. We've got the Geneva boys hosting Wayne on Thursday night. Those are a pair of A2 teams right now, and they're the 9 and 10 seeds, so there's a chance that they could meet each other in a first-round play-in game. And it's in the case of Geneva, we're still looking to see that improvement. They got off to the really slow start. They're playing better. So I think this will be a game to see, which one of those teams might play a spoiler role in that A2 bracket.
Yeah, and you look at the Finger Lakes East standings, and it's almost surprising to see both Wayne and Geneva down near the bottom. They're tied for 5th at 1-4 in the league right now with Waterloo. We just saw Geneva beat Waterloo for their first league win on Friday night, but even though they're both a little down, they're a challenge for anybody in the East at this point, especially Geneva, I think, who's starting to put it together. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Panthers back above 500 by the end of the year in the league.
Yeah, I think Brian Miller's an excellent coach, and they've got good athletes. Their problem was they just lost everybody, and no matter how good your players are, it's just when you got a bunch of guys that really haven't worked together very much at the varsity level, it's going to take some time. So I think that win over Waterloo was a good sign, and can they win a Section 5 title? Probably not this year, but I think they're the kind of team that could scare a couple of teams and make it deeper in the bracket than their standings might suggest.
Yeah, and the trick for Brian Miller is just keep getting better every game. Marquand Ross had a great game on Friday night, and I really think that they're kind of a team on the rise after a slow start, due in part to a really difficult schedule. But Ted will be listening in on that Geneva-Wayne game. What's the day and time?
That'll be Thursday night at 7:30 at Geneva.
Wonderful. Okay, Ted, thanks for getting up a little early this morning, and we'll be tuning in to you on Thursday night, and we'll talk to you next week at our normal time.
All right, sounds good.
All right, Ted, have a great week.
You too.
Well, there you go, Verk. Ted's going to be in Geneva for that Geneva-Wayne game, and I like Geneva in that game. Wayne's lost to Mynderse and Waterloo in the past week, so.
Yeah, but I think they're both teams who they're going to win a few games. I think, like you said, especially Geneva. Geneva could possibly be. They beat Mynderse after losing to them in the league. They beat them in the tournament. So obviously they got to play Mynderse again in Mynderse, so that should be an interesting game. And they had a win over Waterloo. They're capable of beating several teams in Finger Lakes East. Newark handled them pretty easily, but outside of Newark, I think they're going to have a shot against everybody.
Yeah, I think they might even have a shot against Newark next time around. Now let's bring in Korzy and Mike into the show, guys. Thanks for coming in. Today, the idea for today's show, we're going to have a little round table. We're going to go through each of the leagues and kind of talk about every team and see where we're at about the midway point of the season here. So why don't we start out with in the Finger Lakes East? Last night, Friday night, Kevin, you and Brendan called that Geneva-Waterloo game, and Waterloo is a team that we kind of had predicted to do very well this year in the East, and it hasn't really materialized. They're at 1-4, 4-5 overall after that loss to Geneva, and a team that's still relatively young. They have one senior in Jonathan Jones that makes an impact. The rest juniors. Dikembe Ayers is a junior, Ben Deming a junior, Nick Stenberg a junior. But you see a lot of Waterloo. And what's your take with this team? Why aren't they more successful with the talent that they have?
Well, I agree with you, Jim, and you're just kind of waiting for that group of kids to kind of turn the corner. And the questions become now, January 11th, will they turn the corner this year? And watching them against Geneva the other night, I'm not sure if they will. They're very inconsistent at times. Jonathan Jones, the lone senior, will come out and make some good plays, and then, the next few times down, he'll make some bad plays that hurt his team. The major consistency they've had, and he hasn't been that consistent, has been Deming. Yeah. I look at these teams, Geneva and Waterloo. I don't think they have the talent to be consistent. I think Geneva can win 2-3 games in a row, but then I think you're going to have some setbacks as well. Same thing with Waterloo. I don't think either one of them are really going to contend at this point for knocking a top team off or winning a couple sectional games. They really got to turn the corner. So, I don't know. We talked about it, but Mike and Matt aren't maybe not familiar with it. But I haven't stopped talking about it since Friday night. Where
amazing thing that happened. Yeah. They go into Wayne and Ben Deming gets a technical in warm-ups for hanging on the rim dunking by the officials. Once the officials come out, you can't dunk anymore. I mean, this has been that way since I played high school basketball 22 years ago.
You had to really look out for that, right?
I didn't have to look out, but I had to watch Vert because he was a little slower than the rest of us. But he could dunk. So, and then the team talks about it. They start off the game with a technical, no jump ball, and then we turn around Friday night and they're playing in their own gym. And Ayers does the same thing, and it's that's the type of stuff that you look at as a coach. Talent. There are some talented kids on that Waterloo bench, but there's a lot we can't even get in. I can kind of get inside of it at Waterloo because I teach there and I know the kids and I've worked with these kids. But a lot of these, what the coaches are dealing with is the chemistry issues and the ability to learn. And if you kind of just watch this Waterloo team from outside, you can pick up on that. As well as some of these other teams that their records reflect. Maybe why they're at the bottom of the league.
I was more surprised that Ayers could dunk, to be honest with you.
He's not that tall, but he's got some ups, apparently.
He's a phenomenal athlete, real fast
5'11",
kid, jumps well. Yep.
6 foot.
Yeah, he very good athlete. But then again, there he is in Wayne, scores 24 Tuesday night, and then Friday night he was non-existent against Geneva.
Yeah, he had a couple early takes, and you thought he was going to have that same type of game, but he just didn't produce. They didn't go back to him. And for a while, it was the Ben Deming show. I mean, he was unstoppable, but foul trouble again, and he fouls out. And it's funny because we're sitting there watching the game, and you guys are calling it, and Ben laid off a potential foul situation early in a possession, and you praised him. You said, that's a smart play by Deming, and then that 5 seconds later, he reaches in and fouls out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was talking to his mom before the game, and she said his grandmother offered him $20 if he has 3 or less fouls in a game. So Ben could be making some money and helping the team, but it just can't seem to pull back. It's tough. I mean, Mike, what do you think about? Is it difficult for especially a big kid to stay out of foul trouble? He's got to be really conscious of it, right?
I don't. Some people have a tendency just to be more aggressive, but I think it comes down more to just a good basketball sense and just a good head on your shoulders to know. I was thinking about that this morning as I've gotten back involved, with you guys into the high school basketball scene. Is you see a lot of talent, but what makes a difference? Of all the games I've seen, besides a player like Collins for Newark, I mean, he's a baller. He's a basketball player. He's got a good court sense, good awareness, and it is something that can be learned. And I don't know how you develop that in somebody, if it starts young or whatever. But you have to be smarter on the floor. Is it coaching? Is it parenting? Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a handle on that because out of all the teams we've seen, I haven't seen a lot. I think I expected to see more players like that. like
Tyler Collins.
Yeah.
Maybe not that good, but who just had a keen sense of leadership, whatever it might be, that special something on the court. Ben Deming, I was impressed by him from an athletic standpoint when I saw him. I was a spectator at the Mynderse Waterloo game, but just some, dumb things really is what it comes down to.
But it's funny that you bring Tyler Collins up, and you got to remember these are 17-year-old, 16-year-old kids. Ben Deming's 16 years old. I mean, he's still a kid.
Yeah, he's not supposed to be perfect
right.
like maybe Collins is as a senior.
Yeah, and we remember calling Collins as a sophomore,
yeah.
and Collins kind of hit his turning point last year as a junior. He struggled last year at times with junior, and if he was their point guard on a really good team, but he was their third option, and now you look at him this year, and he's really matured, a lot, and he's grown into that. So that's what's great about watching these high school teams is we can talk about what they do and what they don't do right, but they're just young kids, and Collins is a perfect example of a kid that's really. We've got to watch the last couple of years flourish into this role that he has this year.
It's funny when you mentioned Ayers and that they didn't go to him whatever game you were talking about anymore, because I remember at the beginning of that Waterloo Mynderse game not knowing any of the players besides, of course, he had mentioned who Deming was. The first few possessions of that game, Ayers happened to be involved with the ball, and I said, well, this point guard's good.
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, he didn't do much the rest of the game. Mainly because he either didn't take control or they didn't go to him.
Right, yeah.
So I think it's needing to know your role as a team and as a player.
So Verk, you played one of the best players to come out of Section 5 in the history of Section 5, and you didn't play as a freshman. I mean, back if you were playing now, you'd probably be on the team as a freshman. But you played as a sophomore, junior, and then senior. Obviously, won the state title. What was the learning experience like for you? I mean, as a sophomore, did you feel mature enough, or did you, looking back at those 3 years, did you consistently get smarter? Did you consistently make less mental errors?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. As a freshman playing JVs, I didn't play a whole lot. I actually broke my ankle that year, but as a sophomore, you're kind of the back then it was if you were a sophomore playing varsity, it was a big deal.
Right.
You had to be pretty good. Now we see a lot of freshmen that play varsity, and we could talk about that forever as well. But as the season goes on, and I think I started to become a leader as a sophomore just based on my play, and I led the league in scoring my sophomore year. But just I made a lot of mistakes as a sophomore, junior, even into my senior year, a lot of mistakes. But I think I improved a ton, even from my junior year to my senior year, as well as a lot of the other guys on the team. And I think a big thing for us was. We played together our whole lives, and we had great chemistry.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing. You look at that Waterloo team, you watch them warm up. They got three guys dunking over their head and doing whatever, and you like, wow, they're gonna be pretty good. And they have a lot of talent. They got a lot of guys who can play basketball, but every night it's something. It seems like with them, but I think a lot of it does have to do with chemistry and having good leadership and guys who, when somebody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, somebody who could say, kind of get in their face. It doesn't always have to be the coach. Mm-hmm. But when you have like a Tyler Collins we've talked about, I'm sure, guys get online a little bit. He can get them back to where they need to be and kind of have that coach on the court.
Well, let's talk about Newark a little more, because they're at first place, firmly entrenched, one game up now on Penn Yan and Pelmac, or is it? Yeah, I think they're one game up on both Penn Yan and
Mynderse.
Pelmac. Oh yeah, Mynderse. Mynderse sticking around at 4-1. We shouldn't discount that. But Penn Yan loses a thriller to Pelmac in overtime this week. But Newark this week took out Palmyra Macedon, handed them their first league loss. And Shamar Logan's had 17 to lead the scores in that game. That's a big game where Tyler Collins wasn't even on the leading scorer, and that just shows some games he's willing to sit back and and not get the points, let other guys get the points. But then I think Newark must have played again right against Mid Lakes, 85-46, and there's a game where Collins had 15 points, 7 assists, 8 steals. Brian Sharp, 15. Akron Rodriguez, 13 points, 5 assists. And so it's not just Tyler Collins in Newark. Shamar Logan's is a senior. Akron Rodriguez reminds me a lot of Akia Jackson from Geneva last year on their sectional title team. And Sharp, we know is his uncle, I think.
Yeah, Kevin Sharp.
Yep.
Yeah.
but they're a pretty well-rounded team. Love the way Havrilla plays. 90 feet of man-to-man pressure for most of the game. And do you see them as walking away with the East? Anybody going to beat them?
I don't think anybody beats them. I think a couple teams can challenge them. Penn Yan's very athletic. Not the greatest basketball team, not the greatest bunch of shooters, but they're real athletic, strong kids that if they get hot on any night can beat anybody in this league, including Newark. Pale Mac's got some shooters, but I don't think they have the type of play, the players that Newark has. So if Newark loses, I think it's either to Penn Yan or Pale Mac.
I was surprised at how easily Newark handled Paul Mac.
I was too, yeah.
Paul Mac, you guys saw him play. You guys have seen these teams a little bit more than me in that tournament you guys did. But, Newark seems to be really coming together. They're a little coming into the season. We didn't really know what to expect when Ron Derek Morris transferred. And, they lost a lot of guys off the team from last year. And obviously they've had some guys whose names I don't recognize.
Micah Wright, Jamie Rosser, and Ron Derek Morris.
Sure.
That's almost as big a loss as Geneva and Clyde this year,
So, they come back with Collins, and, we saw Shamar Logans a lot last year come off the bench a little bit. But, Newark's, they got you talk about having a program. They very rarely are they down to, where they're not going to be a second or third place team, let alone win the league in the Finger Lakes East. They have a great program over there, and they just, it helps when you get a lot of great players as well.
I guess that what happened in that Pale Mac game was that Newark applied the full court pressure, and Pale Mac just couldn't handle it. Their two best guards are sophomores, Damian Wright and I can't remember the other. Hawkins is the other kid. I guess they, early on, Newark just built this lead because they couldn't handle the pressure. So that's something that Penn Yan and Mynderse are going to have to look out for when they play. And we actually have, Verk, you and I are going to call the game in Newark, Mynderse and Newark, I think a week from Tuesday. And that's going to be the key to the game. If Mynderse is going to have a chance in that game, they're going to have to handle the pressure. Now, I guess we can talk a little bit about Mynderse now. We're talking about them maybe being able to beat Newark, but yet we just watched a game where they snuck by Mid-Lakes, the team that's 1-8 on the season and 0-5 on the year, in their home gym. So it doesn't give us a lot of hope that they're going to be able to handle it Newark. But what do you guys think? Can this Mynderse team beat Newark? One thing that a lot of people have said is this Mynderse team can beat anybody because they're so predominantly live and die by the three-point shot.
Yeah, but the one thing Newark excels at is their man-to-man defense. And if you're going to play Mynderse, you really got to get out and guard a man-to-man above the arc and not give them their three-point shot. I think Mynderse is kind of a typical of what the league is. They have a couple real strong players in Kerher and Verkey, and then the rest of the way out, there's not a lot of balance that I would say Newark, Pale Mac, and Penn Yan have. Those teams are a lot more balanced, a little bit deeper. At times Mynderse is getting good play from a kid here and a kid there, but you're not going to do it with just the two kids. And Mynderse sitting at 4-1, they've gone through the bottom half of the league. And here we are heading into mid-January. Now you're really going to get into league play and where are you going to go. And the one thing I think Newark's done a great job with is they've gone out and played some very tough teams.
Yeah.
That Livonia team I think is going to come back in sectionals and bother people. That Ricky Allen's a really good point guard. And then Newark went and played in a Christmas tournament up in Syracuse like they always go somewhere, Glens Falls, and they kind of make a weekend of it, and they play really top teams, and they took a big loss to Fayetteville, but that's a really good program too.
Oh yeah,
team,
yeah.
So when you go play Fayetteville and you get used to that speed, and then you come back and play Pale Mac, I think that's the idea of what Newark's trying to do.
I think they were also playing the Rush Henrietta tournament where they played Jamestown
and
they
got beaten. They beat McQuaid.
Yeah, their two losses I think are to Fayetteville and Jamestown. Jamestown made a run at the state title last year. It's a big school down in down south there in Buffalo, and then Fayetteville's always good, and that's the difference. But Mynderse obviously at home I think is a lot more dangerous. Even though the other night against Mid-Lakes they didn't look good, but that's my
on any given night anything can happen. If they shoot the lights out, could it happen? Sure, but 9 out of 10 times I don't think that they'll stand a chance on them. Even with good guards, I think the pressure will speed up the game, and I just don't think they'll be able to hang with them. That's the type of team Newark is. I think,
I think looking at Mynderse, like the jury's still out. They've beaten the teams really they're supposed to beat. They split with Geneva, and they kind of got Geneva early when they were recovering from all the losses of last year, and then Geneva handled them pretty good in the Red Jacket tournament. You look at their wins: South Seneca, Honeoye, Mid Lakes. I don't know if anybody Wayne. I think
Waterloo game.
Out of all them, the most wins any team has is 2 wins. So
and then none of them have been convincing wins.
No,
That's the thing. If they beat Mid Lakes by 20, then we might look at that.
I think the Wayne game the other night that's a good win. They won
no
by
doubt.
15,
And
Waterloo, they're up by 16. Win by what?
But that's where Mynderse, obviously they could lose to Waterloo and Geneva in the second time around, and obviously they could beat them as well. But they're a team who they're interesting because like we talked about, they got some very talented offensive players, and I think we forget how big they are sometimes. We got with Bachman,
blocking with Bachman.
Carfola, if you really look at his stats, he gets like 15, 16 rebounds sometimes. And I think maybe if he got a couple more touches inside, he could relieve some of that pressure from the guards because he's a really good athlete. He's developing. He's a junior. Trout. They got some bodies that can come off that bench and do a little bit.
Maybe the reason we don't think of them that way is because they're not producing offensively. But Kafola's getting on the boards. Bachman's blocking shots. Some of their big guys maybe aren't contributing offensively, so you don't notice them quite as much when you're looking at the box scores and stuff.
They're a team, I really worry about them defensively, if they can really dig in and get stops when they have to as well. But, we'll see in the next couple of weeks. They go to Honeoye tomorrow, so, I don't know if Coach Ciotti's kicking himself a little bit for getting Honeoye twice. No offense to Honeoye, but, they're really, really struggling. You don't really get much out of those games. And, they played South Seneca, who's, down, middle of the pack this year, but Mynderse handled them pretty easily. So not really getting you ready for sectionals or league play for that matter. Last year we saw him play Clyde and Lions where, they were great games, a lot of fun to watch, and, a little different this year. But he has a different team this year as well. You lose Luke Ruddy and stuff. I think he wanted to make sure they got some wins under their belt.
Right. Well, this week in the East, we have Newark traveling to Penn Yan on Friday. That's a game we're going to want to keep an eye on. Pelmax at Mynderse on Friday as well, so a lot. And then an interesting crossover on Monday, Penn Yan at Dundee. Always fun down there in Yates County when those two meet. So let's take a move on over here to the Finger Lakes West. And the surprise of the year so far, I think, and maybe it's just a surprise for us because we aren't able to get out there and see much of these kids, is the Naples Big Green Machine at 7-0 on the year with a couple big wins. And Corsi, you and I are going to actually see them Tuesday night in Ovid in the Jack Guinan Arena, South Seneca, Naples, live on Finger Lakes 1 Sports at 7:30. And what are you excited to see about this Naples team?
Well, I this is why I got into doing this. You came to me a couple years ago, asked me if I wanted to do it, and it was kind of my connection getting back involved into the varsity basketball scene in the area. And, I look at it, South Seneca, probably not going to be a real formidable opponent for Naples, but, I'm interested in see how South Seneca's improved since the beginning of the year when we first saw him, and I want to see this Tilly kid play for Naples, and so we don't get to see the West a lot. We're very, we're biased to the East because we live in Seneca Falls, and that's where, they are. But I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully, a good fundamental team, with some good players that, sometimes we've lacked a little bit this season, So I'm real excited to see Naples.
Yeah, and I'm also excited to see if South Seneca can give them a game because I look at the South Seneca team on paper, or actually in person when we saw them play. Short-handed. I think the roster's a little small. The first game we see him, they didn't have Lincoln Backman Lowe, who's the best player on the team. He's a double-double guy every single night. And so you see Backman Lowe and you see the Dresser kid, and they got a nice point guard, John Drew, small in stature but pretty good with the ball. And Colin Morella in the middle can score the ball, and I don't know. I just think that maybe that they could be a little bit better in terms of the outcomes of some of these games than is actually happening. And I don't know. I think some of that might be due to their lack of depth, but I think they got enough talent to beat anybody on any given night. So I'm going into this game wondering if South Seneca can't pull the upset on Tuesday night.
Yeah, they're going to be well prepared. Danny Lent does a great job with them. But yeah, there's 8 of them, and they're young. And, just same thing we talked about some of the teams in the East, the young kids make bad decisions. And I'm sure that's probably a similar problem that South Seneca is facing, down south. And those young kids, are they consistent enough? is Lincoln and Devin Rogers, and are these guys, consistent enough to make a run and get a few wins in a row, and in a couple of years, they'll be pretty good. But right now, when are they going to turn the corner?
And Verk, they're in the same class as Waterloo, aren't they?
Who's that?
Seneca? Who's South Seneca's? What sectional class?
No, they're
C2.
C2.
So same as Mynderse.
Mynderse C1.
Okay, I keep forgetting them.
The big thing with sectionals for me in that game is Naples. They're a C3 school, and
along with Lions.
where we see Lions, and that was kind of looking at that class. It's going to be very interesting when you got Lions, you got Wheatland Chile, who's a favorite in that. They got three brothers that play together. One's a freshman, junior, and senior. And then, Naples is kind of surprised. They had a big win over Early College, a team who kind of is in Mynderse class, which, Naples was able to beat them. And that opened a lot of eyes, I think, getting a big win outside the Finger Lakes West.
And then you look at the rest of the West. Dundee in second. That's a team I think we had pegged to win the league. Naples beat them. They'll play again. But Dundee, Coach Miller's squad is strong. They're at 6-2 overall, 5-1 in the league, and it's really shaken out to almost be a two-team battle after Dundee really took it to Marcus Whitman, another team that we had is potentially contending with Naples for that title. And let me find that score.
Dundee 63, Whitman 46.
Yeah, so a pretty solid win for Dundee at home. Andrew Clark had 14, Tyler Kelly had 11. And then earlier this week, Dundee beat Red Jacket 52-30, and in that game, Jarrett Butler had 17 and 9, and Jordan Conyers had 5 points, 8 assists, 6 steals. So what I get with Dundee is they're really deep across the board. Got a lot of guys that contribute, and they're physical, they're tough. That's kind of the hallmark of Dundee's program. And so I think Dundee will give Naples, a challenge before this thing's over, especially if they can win that rematch. And Whitman, that was a big loss for Whitman. Now they're 3-2 in the league and 5-2 overall, but I wouldn't count Whitman out yet. And HAC, a team that we thought might play into the mix, but they're 4-2 now, and I believe that they beat South Seneca this week. But they lost to Naples 49-26. So going into every team, I think when I see Naples play on the schedule, I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. See how HAC does against Naples. And then you see the result, and you're like, man, Naples is really good. Isaiah Tilley had 15 in that win. Noah Gorton had 19. And so, Korzeniewski, I can't wait to call that game with you on Tuesday night down from the Jack Guinan Arena. We've never done a game, South Seneca County. I'm hoping it's a good atmosphere. Hopefully a lot of people travel up for Naples and support this team, but it should be a good one and worth tuning into if you want to see some Finger Lakes West action.
Absolutely, and we don't we only do a few West games a year, and this is one of them. So there's some people out there that might get a chance to see what our webcast is all about, and some Naples fans will be tuning in and watching, I'm sure. And I know South Seneca, those people down there watch a lot. And they get into it. So real excited about that game.
And as far as the rest of the West goes, you got some teams that have historically been strong, like Bloomfield, always near the top of the West. They're a little down this year, 2-3, 2-4 overall. Red Jacket had a key injury. Corey Fogarty hurt himself in the football season, so he's been out for the year, and that's hurt them. Honeoye, remember when Ben Kratsley a couple years ago, they had a kid named Ben Kratsley, and they were really riding high, had a hazing incident at the end of the year, and they haven't ever recovered. They were 1-6 and 1-5 in the league. And then, of course, the Romulus Warriors are sitting there at 0-7, and it's, you don't know what to say about that. You don't even know if there's any light in the end of the tunnel for Romulus, and there's a program that's won tons of sectional titles over the years, and a really proud program that's, hasn't won a game now in 2 years.
Yeah, if you look at Romulus, Damon Nicholson, what he's doing with the girls team, and you have to have that consistency, with that guy that's there working with the program, and it used to be Rick McCulloch, and since he's kind of stepped down over there, they have really lacked some talent and some competitive teams. So hopefully sooner or later Romulus will get that going again.
Well, let's move it over to the Wayne County, and I saved what I consider the best for last because the Wayne County League is kind of crazy this year. I love it. And right now, Red Creek, Jake Slobe's team, Jamie Grimshaw, head coach, Jake Slobe, senior leader, 8-0 on the season, 7-0 in the league, and you guys know that Red Creek's never won the Wayne County title.
I believe it.
And they got a chance this year.
They got a great chance this year.
As good a chance as they ever had or may have, in a while. And another interesting fact, I was talking to, I think JV coach Will Dumont over there. I think he's a JV coach. But he said not only that, until this year, they'd never beaten Clyde. Like, never beaten them. And here they are, top the Wayne County standings at 7-0. But it's not over yet, because you got North Rose Wolcott pulling a big win off against Lions this week, and was probably the game of the year that we didn't see, but I guess it was a really well-played game on, what night was that, Wednesday night, Thursday night? Thursday night, 66-62, North Rose Wolcott wins, overcoming a 32.7 rebound, 5 assists, 5 steal night from Damon Hunter. And they did it with a balanced scoring attack. They had 4 guys in double figures. Connor Pendleton led all scorers in 17. Sophomore point guard Tyler Norris had 16. Garrett Hoyt 13 points, 13 rebounds. Luke Gersner 13 points. Huge win for North Rose Wolcott. It knocks Lions down to 3rd at 4-2 on the season in the league. And then you got East Rochester also at 4-2 in the league. And you can't really count out Gananda yet at 3-3. Clyde Savannah 3-4. They're probably going to have a tough time crawling back into this race, but it's a deep race, and it's Red Creek's to lose at this point. But we saw North Rose Wolcott play Waterloo, and Waterloo won, and they just couldn't make a shot. I guess it was the exact opposite in the game on Thursday night for Zach Young's Lions team, where they were making free throws and they were making their shots, and sometimes that's the difference in a win. But of course, that Waterloo lost a non-league game, so it doesn't affect the league standings. But how do you guys call this one at this point? Anybody you want to just throw it up there? Who's going to win the Wayne County League?
Red Creek.
You think they're going to hold on? Because they got to play tomorrow night, Monday night. Lions at Red Creek in a game that was made up from a couple weeks ago. That's postponed.
Yeah, it's a huge game, obviously. That's almost, if Lions wants to win the league, a must-win for Lions. If they lose that game, they fall 3 games back. And, with Red Creek already, playing, and Red Creek played North Rose once and beat them already, I believe, right? So, I think if Lions wants to get back in this race, they got to win that game.
Yeah, what do you guys think Red Creek, or are you going to step outside the box?
Well, I think Monday night, you
it's
can
a big
answer
one.
this. It's Monday night because it puts Lions 3 games in the loss column. They've obviously showed they can lose to other teams. They could have lost to Clyde. North Rose, they've lost to East Rochester. So it is a balanced Wayne County, top heavy. Coach Young came on your show at the beginning of the year and said that it's wide open.
Yeah.
And Red Creek being undefeated right now, in a week we'll see. I mean, if they win 1 or 2 more games the next week, they're really going to put themselves in a position. But you can't count out North Rose yet either.
What really hurt Lions, their other loss was Sodas, and Hunter didn't play.
Right.
And Sodas is kind of struggling, so you get that loss against one of the bottom teams. We talked about Sodas as a team with some talent, but they're 2-5, 3-5, and one of their 2 league wins came against Lions. So that sets you back to where Lions really, really, really needs to. They can't afford really any more league losses because. I don't see, outside of Lions and North Rose, I don't think any of their teams are going to have a shot to beat Red Creek.
Yeah, that Sodas loss will haunt Zach Young's Lions for the rest of the season. You just can't get that back, and at this point, they're going to need some help because they're going to get. Well, no, maybe not. They got Red Creek twice. They got them Monday, and then they got them on Finger Lakes Sports. I think on February 3rd or something like that. We got them in Lions at the Atwood. So I guess they do control their own destiny at this point. But a big game tomorrow night. Mike, what do you think about? Who's your pick?
Well, I mean, I like the teams like a Red Creek. I haven't seen them play, but when I look at the box scores, I mean, what stands out at a team like Red Creek or that you mentioned a Newark team earlier is there's more balanced scoring. It's not just Hunter's putting up 34, Liam Kerr 25, and everybody else under 10. It just seems that there's always somebody 12, 13, maybe somebody in the 20s, but it's more of a team effort, it seems. It seems like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts in these teams up top.
Yeah, and the one game that I did watch was the game that you guys carried on Finger Lakes 1, And, I was really interested to see Jake Slobe because we see his name in the box score, and I'd never get a chance to see him play. And, I'm out there watching, and it's like, which one's, this guy looks like Slobe, and that guy, and they kind of come at you from different angles, and more of a team, so I do agree with you.
And he wasn't even, I was looking at the box score, I don't know if it was this week or last week, that there's been games where he wasn't even the top scorer for, obviously, one of the top players in the area.
Yeah, they beat Williamson on Thursday night, and he wasn't on the line. It was Nick Klein, the sophomore point guard, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Ethan DeRocher, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in that game. And I think that the big difference in Red Creek this year is Nick Klein, the point guard. He's just a sophomore, but he's kind of taken the lead from Jake Slobe, watching Slobe work over the past few years, how hard he works at it and his approach he takes. And so Nick Klein's bought into that now, and he's running the team as a point guard. And I think it bodes well for Red Creek, maybe not to win the league next year without Slobe, but to still be competitive and grow that program and get some younger kids coming up. So you're right, it's not just Jake Slobe. I think in years past it has been for the past couple of years, and that's why they haven't been winning. Now a little more rounded, and you can get some support for Slobe. And Red Creek is 7-0, 8-0, and what's their class? I've got to apologize. I wanted to get the section Red Creek. I wanted to get all the sectional
C2, I believe.
Yeah, and with Mynderse as well.
Minders is C1.
I can't get that out of my mind.
And Red Creek's leading C2 right now.
Gotcha.
In sectional points. So they got Dundee, the local teams in there. In South Seneca. That's where you go back to bringing them up, but. Red Creek put themselves in a good position to get a number 1 overall seed. So if they've never won Wayne County and they've never beaten Clyde, they've probably never been a number 1 seed in sectionals, which is real exciting for teams.
Historic year for Red Creek, for the Rams. And, we're getting to that point in the season where now we're going to start looking at the sectional standings every week. And, of course, what we really pull for these Wayne Finger Lakes teams to get to the big house so we can go up there and watch as many of them play and compete as possible. So there's a quick run around the 3 Wayne Finger Lakes leagues. We're going to step aside for 30 seconds, come back with our players of the week and our updated power rankings and girls Super 6 rankings, so sit tight.
Guidance and partnership through every step of the journey. Welcome to Generations Bank.
Good luck to all of our student athletes this high school sports season.
Went on. We got worse. Arguing.
And welcome back to the Upstate Hoops Podcast on FingerLakes1.tv and YouTube. A special Sunday morning edition, sitting here in studio with Matt Verkey, Kevin Korzeniewski, and Mike Alessio, talking high school hoops. And we're extending this episode for a little bit, going about a full hour. But first, before we get into revealing our new updated power rankings and Super 6 rankings, Verk, let's give our players of the week for the week. Finger Lakes 1 t-shirt to the winners, but you got to email us at upstatehoops@fingerlakes1.com with your t-shirt size and your mailing address, and we'll ship it right out. Who do you got for player of the week this week, Verk?
I got Liam Kerr from Mynderse. He had 25 points in a win over Mid-Lakes. Is that right? Or is that? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and then he had 18 against Wayne. So, a nice week for Liam. Mynderse gets 2 wins. He averages over 20 points a game. And, he's got Mynderse in a good position. We talked about earlier, 4-1 in the league. And a lot we'll see where this goes with him.
Yeah, and Liam's been a candidate for a t-shirt all season long. It's just there's a lot of other play out there, and Liam's been consistently putting up around 20 points a game for Mynderse, and this was a week where a lot of guys had one good game and nothing the next game. Liam continued being consistent, and I figured it would be a good time to get it for him, especially when those are 2 big wins for Mynderse. As you mentioned, Burke, they're 4-1. We kind of talk of them as an afterthought for the Finger Lakes East, but they're 1 game back, just like Penn Yan, just like Pelmac, and they got a chance to earn it on the court. Now, Mike, you've seen Liam play multiple times this year. in his senior campaign. What's your take on Caraher?
No, he's got a solid game. I mean, I like he. The thing I like about Liam is he's a slasher. He's pretty quick. So when he gets to the hoop, we know he likes to shoot the threes and can shoot the threes.
Yep.
But when he does go to the hoop, he draws a lot of contact. So I see him at the line a lot. I don't know what his, he's a good foul shooter. But I like the way he plays. But you always got to talk about your team when you're talking about an individual. So to me, I think the thing, because we're all from Seneca Falls, is we've seen these kids grow up. We know their parents. We all played ball at Mynderse. Is that we know the potential of all the kids. And I think the frustrating part for me and when we talk is it just doesn't seem to be coming together. Like Korzy said about Waterloo, you're kind of waiting for them to just blend.
Yeah.
And, they're getting the wins, and it's looking good on paper, and, of course, it said a win's a win. But they could, in my opinion, be playing so much better. I'm not quite sure, what it is. I don't see a lot of communication on the court with him.
Yeah.
Nobody really stepping up. You got a point guard who's a sophomore. He's probably a little intimidated in taking that leadership role. But as far as Liam goes, he's solid. I like it. He plays good defense, gets some good steals. Some things I don't like about him. I think he's a little too involved with the refs. Him and Devin, I think they have a tendency when they're shooting the three, and they've got a guy covering them close, so try to flop.
Yeah,
and,
a lot of flop.
Very often, it's affecting their form. So there's some things I don't like, but he's a great kid and he's a great ball player.
Yeah,
25 is 25, no matter how you do it.
Yeah, and you mentioned that maybe they're not quite coming together yet. There's still the time as we move closer to sectionals to put that together, have that good run. They certainly can bring home a sectional title, if not a league title still.
Well, I think Matt said it on another broadcast or a game. When you're at Mynderse, sure you care about a league title, but really the big thing that people talk about and gets on the wall and that you want is a sectional title. I mean, you're the smallest school in the league. So if you don't win the leagues, hey, everybody else is a little bit bigger, and that's okay. But at the end of the year, can we get a sectional title or not? And Mynderse, I think, is in a position to challenge for one. So, that's what they're working for. And I agree with Mike in the fact that those kids, they got chemistry issues. Liam's a good player, Devin's a good player, but, when Newark comes to town and Pelmac comes to town, that's going to be like a semifinal in sectionals. How are you, character-wise, how are you going to handle that? Are you gonna act out? Run up and kick a wall? Like Deming did in Waterloo, or are you gonna be able to keep your cool in a dogfight and persevere? Where's the resilience with this team? And they haven't really been tested, and you're going to see over the next 3-4 weeks when they get this hard of the schedule how they're going to be able to handle that. And then you can say and look, well, geez, if this is how they're going to play in a semifinal game on a big court on a big stage or a final game, then maybe they will or won't win.
You got to keep your attitude in check and how you're looking at these games, as it was mentioned earlier. They could take the attitude because they know they're going to be playing in a sea of not the talent of these teams that they're playing against. Say, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
We're not going to play teams like this when it comes to the sectionals. Or are they trying to go into every game thinking, we got to win this game? I'm sure they are, but what are they doing different to practice to win for those games? Are they doing anything different?
Yeah, and I don't think a great team or a very good team would ever look at any of these games and not want to beat the team that's in front of them. I don't think they would think, we didn't beat Pelmac tonight, but it's okay because we're not going to play Pelmac in sectionals. Well, you're probably not setting yourself up to do very well in sectionals unless you have a different attitude. But Liam, without a doubt, the leader of that team, and I think they'll go as far as he can take them. And in a way, he's responsible for that chemistry as much as the coach. And so I know it's something that Coach Ciotti's working on, getting them better as they move towards sectionals. And I do expect to see continued improvement for that team, and I do expect to see a run to the big house. I expect to see Mynderse in Rochester at the Blue Cross, at the end of the year. My player of the week, though, Verk, Damon Hunter. He's a guy that's won a few T-shirts from Finger Lakes One over the years, but I've been waiting for the week, and this is it. It was a loss to North Rose, but he probably had one of the best individual performances of anybody this season in a losing effort. 32 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 5 steals. And against Williamson, 24 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. So, that's about as solid a week as you're going to have around here. Not only scoring points, but, rebounds, assists, and steals. And, I'll say this about Hunter. He could be the most talented player in all the Wayne Finger Lakes. He's amazing to watch. And a lot of people call him Tippy. That's his nickname. I don't call him Tippy because he's got too much personality, too much. I always want him to be Damon Hunter. Just go out there, Damon, play your game, no extracurricular stuff, and everything else will take care of itself because I love Damon Hunter's game.
Yeah.
Very talented. We saw him, as a sophomore. He had a lot of success early in his career. He got brought up halfway through that year and ended up being MVP in sectionals when Lions made a deep run, ended up losing to a good Mynderse team in the qualifier. But he's another great player in the long line of great players for Lions. Very talented. He's got good size, good athleticism, shoots it pretty good, does a lot of good stuff. And you're right. He needs to tone it down a little bit at times and really lead that team. He's a senior, and they need him to get 25, 30 points a game sometimes to win because offensively they're a little challenged outside of Damon Hunter. And he can do a lot of stuff. He rebounds the ball. He does a good job of finding his teammates. We always see 5, 6, 7 assists from him. He's got all the tools. So, I think, we talked about Mynderse with Liam and Hunter's a kid who Lions, I think, is going to go as far as he carries him. If, he gets hot, he could have 35, 40 points. He could take him to another sectional title.
And beyond,
But he needs to, obviously be in the game, keep his head, and, and focus on what he needs to do.
Well, there you go. Damon Hunter, Lions, Liam Kerr, Mynderse, our Upstate Hoops Player of the Week. And now, Verk, it's time to get to the rankings portion of our show. Every week we release our updated rankings. You'll see the scores in the webcast we do, the ranking next to the teams that are ranked on the scoreboard. And when we report the scores on FingerLakes1.com, you'll see the rankings help to give you, the fan, a little feel of how things are stacking up across the 3 leagues. And Verk, I'll let you go first with the Girls Super 6, updated Girls Super 6 rankings.
All right. Not a lot of change, really, there wasn't a lot of games this week on the girls' side for some reason. I think the most surprising result of the week was that Newark was able to sneak in and beat Mid-Lakes and give Mid-Lakes their first loss of the season. We were talking about Mid-Lakes with Coach Anderson this past when was that? Last Sunday when he was in here. And, he had them pegged as, one of the front runners in the East. And Newark, a team who's traditionally been strong, came in and got a win over Mid-Lakes. So, going top to bottom, I moved East Rochester out just based on, they're still undefeated and stuff like that. But I just think that, Wayne County's down on the girls' side. I got Mynderse at number 6, and they dropped from 5 just because they got handled pretty easily by Wayne. And they got Newark and Mid-Lakes coming up, so a couple more tough games for them. I got Palmac number 5. Palmac's a team who's got a couple losses, but those losses were to Newark and Wayne.
They beat Newark and this week, I think, right?
Or not Newark. They lost to Wayne, Geneva, and Mid-Lakes, who are 3 teams that obviously we talked about being up there. Mid-Lakes 4. I still got Romulus number 3. I know it's hard to judge Romulus based on that. They play a lot of smaller schools, but hey, you win 40 games in a row in a state championship. You got to keep them in there until they lose a game. Yep. Wayne 2 and Geneva 1.
Yeah, and congratulations, Zoe McDonald, 100,000th point.
It should be noted too. Shayna McLeod from Wayne went over the 1,000-point mark.
Congratulations, Shayna.
Mia Morrison from Geneva. So a lot of scoring going on the girls' side.
And to add to that, Chelsea Steinruck over in Waterloo is 5 points away from 1,000.
Oh, so she'll probably most likely get it next game. She had a couple big games the past week. Yeah, great to see so many of these girls scoring 1,000 points. It's a great way to cap a career and a testament to their hard work. So let's move over to the boys' side of things. Updated top 10 power rankings. This week we had HAC drop out of the poll. They were 9 after that loss. They did beat South Seneca, but a pretty big loss to Naples drops them down and out of the polls. This week's poll features 4 Finger Lakes East teams, 3 Wayne County teams, 3 Finger Lakes West teams. Also receiving votes but not making the poll this week are Geneva, Clyde Savannah, HAC, Dundee's back in, actually. I shouldn't be on this list. Gananda and ER. And so started out at 10. We got Marcus Whitman. They're at 3-2 on the season, 5-2. They were 7 last week. Had a tough loss to Dundee, 63-46 on Friday night. And that moves Dundee right up ahead of them and back into the poll at 9. They're 5-1, 6-2 overall, at 5-1 in the league. I think we were a little shocked when Dundee lost in Naples. And they lost to someone out of league that was a little surprising too earlier in the season. So that made us drop them out. But you know what? They're back in at 9, unranked. And, honestly, I think they might be a mainstay here going forward. Might even be able to push up and towards the top 5 if they keep winning. Number 8, North Rose Wolcott. They were 10th last week. Move up 2 spots with that huge win over over Lions. 5-1 in the Wayne County League, 5-2 overall. And they're 8 and rising, and then 7 up 1 spot from 8. We got the Mynderse Blue Devils, 2 wins this week against Wayne and Mid Lakes, 4-1 in the Finger Lakes East, 7-2 overall, and they move up 1 spot from 8 to 7. And then we got a team dropping from 5 to 6, Lions at 4-2 and 6-2. Still got them 2 spots ahead of North Rose Wolcott despite the loss. The game was in North Rose. I heard it was a great atmosphere, full gym. They'll get another shot at them back at the Atwood. One bad bit of stroke of luck for Zach Young. Adam Van Buskirk injures his ankle late in that North Rose Wolcott game, and it seems like he's going to be out a little while. I'm not sure how long, but it could be a season-ending type of thing there. And he was a good player for that Lions team. Good kid, good player. But so Lions drops to 6. Naples moves up from 6 to 5. They keep winning. The only undefeated team in the Wayne Finger Lakes at 5-0 in the league, 7-0 overall. Mixed Salters, Big Green Machine at 5. They're going to put that 5 ranking on the line in Ovid on Tuesday night on Finger Lakes 1 Sports at 7:30 against South Seneca. And now remaining, holding steady at number 4, we got Red Creek, the highest non-Finger Lakes East team in our rankings. Oh, Red Creek's undefeated too. There's 2 undefeated teams in the Wayne Finger Lakes. I'm sorry. So Red Creek and Naples, the only 2 undefeated teams at this point in the Wayne Finger Lakes leagues. Number 3, we got Penn Yan. They lose a heartbreaker in overtime to Pelmac. Last week, Penn Yan was 2, Pelmac was 3. Now they switch. Penn Yan 3, Pelmac 2, identical 4-1 records in the league, and then number 1 for the since the poll came out first in November is Newark. The Newark Reds, 5-0 in the Finger Lakes East, 7-2 overall, and they hold that number 1 spot, guys. So any comments on this? I know we all kind of contribute to it, but this is kind of the aggregate. Anything that you guys would do different if you were making the poll?
Well, the only thing I look at is we've talked about Mynderse' schedule all year, and we've kind of made a big deal out of their out-of-conference schedule. But so you look at what people's perception is and what people think, and here you have Mynderse at 7 in the power rankings, and their record looks it. I mean, they're 7-2 overall. I mean, that's something to feel good about, whether it's great competition or not. You can be critical about the competition. But there you have Geneva at 3-7, not in the power rankings, and those 2 teams have split.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we went around the room right now and said, hey, who do you think is going to win that final matchup between Geneva and Mynderse, what everybody in the room's thoughts would be, Yeah. So you got one team at 7-2 and one team at 3-7, but what's the eye test there? And and then I look at Lions and you'll see it in sectionals, but you got Lions behind Naples because Naples is undefeated. But if those 2 teams played, who'd be the favorite? So you got to reward what teams have done, and that's what you're doing in this power ranking. And just like any other good ranking system, you want to talk about it. Yeah, sure.
So let me ask you this: Geneva. Do you think Marcus Whitman has a chance to beat Geneva? Marcus Whitman's 10th. If they play Geneva, you think?
No.
I would say Geneva would beat them.
Yeah, so I guess that's part. I think we'll see Geneva work their way back into the top 10 before long here as they pick up some more wins. But you're right; it is part of what you've done on the court and in the eye test portion. Is we all contribute to the poll, but one thing that's been for sure since the beginning of the year: Newark number 1 team to beat. What's Newark's chances in sectionals? They're in there with Geneva. 8-2. Geneva wins last year. If the Finger Lakes East could win back-to-back titles in that section, that's very impressive.
It's tough. I can't even name all the teams in their section because it seems like there's new ones that pop in there every year with some of these, new schools. But they're going to face, right out of the gate, they're going to face good teams. There's not going to be a walk to the Blue Cross in Class A. There's
never is. Yeah.
There's good teams throughout, and you get into a lot of those new charter schools, and hard to keep track of all the teams actually. But Geneva made a great run, and they had to go to overtime the one game to win it, and then they kind of took apart Batavia. But
and Newark was in the semis.
Yeah, and we thought it was going to be a rematch of Newark and Geneva, and I forget who ended up beating Newark there. Obviously,
Batavia beat Newark.
Batavia
right?
beat Newark, right?
And Geneva beat Northwest Prep in the semis.
Yeah, and in overtime in a game that they could have lost, obviously, and then and then Geneva played a great game against Batavia. It really took Batavia apart, and
I remember Burke thinking, guys. I just remember last year when Newark lost, thinking, well, geez, they're not going to get back here anytime soon. They're losing Wright, Rosser, and we didn't even know at the time, but Ron Derek Morris. But I think they're poised to get back.
How are they in the seedings right now?
Well, looking at the current seedings, Newark's second overall, and they're going to be probably second or third throughout the rest of the year. School of the Arts is the number one seed in that class. They're undefeated in the City Catholic League. So
and also a ton of wins against Finger Lakes teams.
Yeah, well, to go undefeated in City Catholic as opposed to going undefeated in the Finger Lakes, I would give the early odd to Soda, and then you got College Prep, U Prep, Monroe, Batavia. I mean, it's tougher that's why Newark doesn't win a lot of sectional titles anymore. It's tougher for them. Whereas Mynderse probably has just as good a shot to win sectionals than Newark does because of who they're playing and where they're going with it.
Better.
Yeah, maybe better. And
it's kind of we talked about with the Mynderse girls being they won sectionals one year with like 5 wins.
Yeah.
And last year they had 2 or 3 regular season wins. And they go to the finals. We get down playing schools our size. And that's why I think for Mynderse boys and girls they're gonna have a shot every year just based on there's not a lot of great teams in that class. You look at Mynderse class this year. I think Early College is one of the city schools in there, and they're 5-4. Obviously it's tough to judge, competition-wise, but ER's in there, but nobody that if you line them up on paper, I take Mynderse over most of their teams right now in their class. So it's the one good thing that I always said with Mynderse playing in the Finger Lakes East is if nothing else it gets you ready for sectionals.
Yeah, and I think for the Wayne Finger Lakes the sweet spot is the C divisions, the C sections, C1, 2, and 3 is where you see a lot of sectional titles and where you see kind of the Wayne Finger Lakes teams have a little more dominance. Once you get up into B, like where Waterloo and even I think HAC, a bunch of other schools, it becomes more difficult. And you made a good point, Kevin, when we called
is Waterloo B1 or 2?
Waterloo is
B1.
as B1 this year, and they're and that's another thing too. As a coach, you look at, sometimes what you do is you fill out beds forms for the state, and that's what your enrollment is based on 9 through 11, and you can go back and forth. Some of these schools teeter back and forth between the classification, and sometimes you get bumped up. It might be an easier road to sectional finals, even if you even up and then down. And
sometimes there's been years where Mynderse was B2 there a little bit, and that was pretty easy, really.
When Mynderse won at B2, they didn't have a lot of competition, and it was a bigger. It was like
Wayland, Cohocton, and they tore teams apart through B, and then they ended up playing Charlotte in the qualifier, and then that was a B1 team who beat us. It was a good game. We were in there, but they ended up beating us.
That's what it looks like for Newark here in the enrollments. They're the bottom, right on the cusp between a B1 and an A2 by 5 students. So.
Yeah, 6 students is really the difference.
And they dropped the B2.
So they dropped the B2. They win it. Not win it, but geez, they got a really good shot.
You're back with Penn Yan, Waterloo, Livonia.
Yeah.
B1, who's leading that right now? Is Livonia's got
B1 is Leadership Academy out of City Catholic as well, and Hornell.
Yeah, Hornell's got a good team.
Pelmec, and I think Livonia and Penn Yan. I mean, that's pretty good.
That's a tough bracket.
I really like that Livonia team with Ricky Allen down there, and I think they'll make a good run at it. And Livonia, when you get in the sectionals there, Livonia, Pelmec, Hornell, Leadership, those are pretty forward.
And even when you look at the big schools. You look at the double A's, they're kind of lucky this year too in that Greece Athena is an A school this year because Athena's probably the best school in Rochester right now. They're really, really taking it to people. They beat Fairport the other night by 25 points, and Fairport's at the top of A2. And so just a lot of times I always think of when my junior year we ended up losing to a very, very good Livonia team. Who probably it was the only time in the history of Livonia they're a C school,
right?
And we play them, and we had a great team my junior year, and we played them tough,
came
but
down,
so
down.
we were they play. I think it was C3 at the time.
Yeah, Livonia is always in a classification where they're B. They're B or better.
And that year, the way the numbers fell, Livonia falls to C, and they went to the state championship and end up losing in the state finals. And then, so if Livonia doesn't fall down, I think, we probably win back-to-back sectional titles and, maybe go to states even as, when I was a junior possibly.
Yeah, that's, the rub of the green, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. And then you get in the whole, where are they going to put the private school teams? And,
I mean, we saw Wilson play earlier in the year. They handled Geneva fairly well, a real good team, and that's a team in the A's right now that's sitting with 3 losses.
Right.
School of the Arts might be better than Wilson. I mean, that's what Newark might have to contend with, and that's tough.
To get back to the East, though, I have to see Geneva play these days because as I've been watching the scores from the games, we saw them against Wilson, and then Korzy, you and I went up as spectators to see Geneva Mynderse game. When I see them pulling out these wins, or when I saw them how they dominated Mynderse, all I'm saying to myself is, what happened?
Yeah, well, the one thing about Geneva, the first thing is I think Coach Miller is kind of just taking the seat back and saying, let him go, where he kind of could control his smart teams that he's had the last 2 or 3 years and put them in positions to do this and that. Now a little chaos is good for them, and they're getting up and down, and Ross is really taking advantage of that.
And because he didn't play the first game we saw him, right?
Marquand Ross?
No, he played.
He did. Yeah. He just wasn't.
I think there was another Ross there that didn't play.
Trayshawn.
Yeah, Trayshawn. And he didn't play against Waterloo either. But
Marquand was there.
Yeah, Marquand did play, and
didn't have quite as good a game as he did against Waterloo.
Barber didn't play, and I don't think he's no longer with the team. Nope. So that was one that was sitting out. That was a big one. He was a guard.
He's a senior guard.
Yeah, senior guard, probably their best shooter, and he's kind of Coach Miller's kind of letting those kids go. It'll really be interesting. I'd like to see him in a couple weeks because. Yes, they beat Waterloo the other night, but are they going to really be able to step up and beat the Penn Yans and Pelmax and Newarks? I still don't think so, even though they're a little bit improved.
Yeah, and I suppose, there's actually a highlight reel of Marquand Ross from the other night up on Finger Lakes 1 and Finger Lakes 1 TV right now. You can watch that. He had a great game, 22 points, but I don't think he shot that well all season. I think that was his best shoot, one of his best couple shooting nights. So that team may come and go as he shoots going forward. But let's take a quick look at the week ahead here in the Finger Lakes. Wayne County leagues. Monday night, there's a couple crossover games. Mynderse at Honeoye and Penn Yan at Dundee. That Penn Yan at Dundee game be a good game to go to if you're down there in Yates County. And then in Wayne County, game of the year so far, maybe Lions at Red Creek in a game that was rescheduled due to shot clock issues. And real quick, guys, let's get a pick on that Lions Red Creek game.
I'm going to go with Lions. I think Lions isn't used to being in the underdog role, and I think Red Creek is going to really feel it, and how do they react to that?
Never win in the Wayne County.
Right.
This win, they could really put a stamp on taking, inside track on that.
I mean, that has a lot to do with a lot of role reversal there. The pressure's now on Red Creek to come out and win that game, and it's got to be a must-win game, for Lions, and geez, Lions has a nice little sleeper role coming into it. So I'm going to go with Lions.
How about you, Mike?
Red Creek.
Going with the Rams.
I'm going to Red Creek. Maybe it's a program turnaround sort of game.
Yeah, I think
it is. If Lions hitting on all cylinders, then, they may be able to do it. But I think Red Creek.
Bert?
I'm going to go with Lions as well. Just they got the experience, and, it's a great matchup. Probably the two best players in Wayne County, and maybe in all Wayne Finger Lakes, really going at it. They probably won't guard each other. I don't think. Slow plays a little bit more inside, but to able to come out and hit the threes as well. And Red Creek's got to find somebody to control Damon Hunter, and I don't know if they do.
Yeah, the point guard's a sophomore, good player, but that's going to be a tall task for him. Wonder if they'll play some type of zone, maybe.
So I see it being playing out low scoring, in the 50s, but I take Lions on 55-51.
And I gotta go Red Creek, guys, because I don't think that the big Jake Slobe, when he started out, was more of an outside shooter. Now plays in the paint, and he's tough, he's physical, he keeps moving on offense, can get the ball a lot of different places around the block and score it. Great free throw shooter, and I don't think that Jordan Almel or Chris P.A. can handle Jake Slobe in the same way. I think Nick Klein might do a better job of handling Hunter at the point than those guys will with Slobe down low. But, it's close. I couldn't say.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, if Hunter and Slobe match up at all. I don't know. Hunter could probably guard Slobe. He's got good size, good strength. But, I don't know how that all will go.
I think you got to get a crew up there, Jim, out to Red Creek.
Oh, I'd like to. Maybe some lake effect snow heads away. I guess it's about a 40-minute drive from Seneca Falls. Red Creek, one of the most remote locations in Section 5. You got Red Creek up there in northern Cuga County, and then you got Dundee down there in southern, as far as the Wayne Finger Lakes. That's quite
you're basically at
difference.
Oswego almost. It's, you're going.
I'm trying to get Jim up to Rochester.
Yeah, we were looking at maybe doing a Fairport Rush game or something, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I did talk to him.
If
My
the
friend's a
sponsor-
coach at Rush Henrietta, my college teammate, so.
So moving ahead with the rest of the week, on Tuesday night, there's some Finger Lakes West teams in action. Dundee at Romulus, HAC at Red Jacket, Bloomfield at Marcus Whitman, and then Finger Lakes Sports will be in Ovid for Naples at South Seneca beginning at 7:30. I'm going to call that game with Corsi. Then on Wednesday night, in Wayne County, you got Clyde Savannah at Gananda, ER at North Rose Woolkit. We didn't talk about ER at all this today, but I wouldn't be surprised if ER pulls off a win like that and gets back into the discussion in Wayne County. Lions at Marion, Sodas at Williamson. I guarantee victories for Lions and Sodas in those games. And then on Thursday, we got Wayne at Geneva in the East, and a game that'll be on WGVA or TuneIn Radio app. WGVA on the TuneIn Radio app. You can listen to Ted Baker call a great game. Thursday night, Honeroy at Dundee, Marcus Whitman at HAC, Red Jacket at Naples, and Romulus at Bloomfield. And then Friday night, we've got in the East, Mid-Lakes at Waterloo. Another big game for Waterloo, a must win that we'll have our eyes on. And then Newark at Penn Yan, game of the week in the East without a doubt. Newark at Penn Yan Friday night. And then Pelmac at Mynderse. And, so there you go. Friday night, top 4 Finger Lakes East teams playing each other. Wayne County, Friday night, ER at Clyde Savannah, Gananda at Williamson, Marion at North Rose Woolkit, Sodas at Red Creek, in a game that Red Creek can't overlook, especially coming off the Lions game. Could be a little donut game there for them. So one more game next week. It's Saturday, South Seneca at Waterloo, and another crossover. They played once already this year, and now they're playing again at Waterloo. So Dan Lent versus Jeff Panic in Waterloo on Saturday night. So, guys, thanks for sitting in for an extended special Sunday. We wanted to go an hour. We went almost an hour and 15 minutes. Surprising, because usually we don't like to talk much, at least this group. Corsi, look forward to seeing you Tuesday night live in South Seneca for the first time. Should be a good one. And Mike, thanks for sitting in for the first time on the podcast. Sure, it won't be the last. And Verk, any parting shots?
No, it's, go Cuse tonight.
Yeah, that's right. 8 o'clock start, Syracuse, Florida State, and then we'll be back, or at least I will, Verk. I don't know if you're planning on coming back.
It's iffy.
Yeah, we'll leave it up there. For a special post-game edition of the Upstate Orange podcast on Finger Lakes 1, about 10:30, probably right after that Syracuse game ends. So thanks for joining us on the Upstate Hoops podcast on FingerLakes1.tv. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher.com. We'll be back here at our normal time next Sunday at 9 p.m. Have a great week, everybody.